Hello and welcome. Let's take a look at our top story. The Swiss town of Davos is hosting 52 heads of state and government and nearly 600 global CEOs at its annual gala of the World Economic Forum. Now, while leaders focus on the delicate economic and financial struggles of several countries, climate change remains the one issue that is being faced by every nation of the world. Climate change is one of the main topics on the agenda for this year's meeting, which has already seen protests against the role of big oil firms, with activists saying that they are hijacking the debate over how to address global warming.
What do we want?
Representatives of major energy firms, including BP, Chevron, and Occidental Petroleum Corporation and Saudi Aramco, are among some of the 1,500 business leaders gathered there. Now, in the latest, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has called on the business leaders at Davos to follow the principles outlined by an expert group to make credible, accountable net zero pledges.
The group has issued a how-to guide for credible, accountable net zero pledges. And here at Davos, I call on all corporate leaders to act based on these guidelines, to put forward credible and transparent transition plans on how to achieve net zero and to submit those plans before the end of the year. Now, the transition to net zero must be grounded in real emissions cuts and not relying essentially on carbon credits or shadow markets.
The UN chief further slammed the big oil corporates. He said these firms need to be held responsible for the environmental harm caused by fossil fuels. He has accused some major oil firms that they have peddled the big lie about the safety of burning fossil fuels for decades, while ignoring their own data on the risks of climate change.
In big oil, peddled the big lie. And like the tobacco industry, those responsible must be held to account. Today, fossil fuel producers and their enablers are still racing to expand production, knowing full well that this business model is inconsistent with human survival.
Guterres even cited a recent research that revealed ExxonMobil scientists had predicted the implications of climate change as early as the 1970s, despite the company's official denial of global warming. Meanwhile, climate activists have urged political leaders and business figures not to encourage any new fossil fuel investments on the sidelines of the forum.
We are trying to use every platform that we get to remind leaders that we cannot have any new fossil fuel investment if we are to address the climate crisis. Talking about adaptation is important, but we can't talk about adaptation while failing to address the very cause of the climate crisis. So I think that leaders get so, excited about adaptation and, about net zeros and all that, but then they allow for more decades of environmental destruction.
Now, for more on this, we are being joined by WION's business editor, Sumit Chaturvedi from Davos. Hello to you, Sumit. Plenty on the agenda at this year's Davos summit. Climate change, of course, remains the one issue that is being faced by every nation of the world. What is being discussed on climate change?
Well, definitely, it's one of the most pressing agendas being discussed at Davos World Economic Forum this time too. And this time, once again, a few days ago. Until a few days ago, there was less snow in Davos. It led to speculation that is the climate change real and it's hitting Davos also very hard. Well, that did not happen later on, and it was snowing in a very good way. But then it led to, again, the fears are once again there that climate change is happening faster than we are anticipating, we are thinking. Leading to that, coming to what UN chief today, he slammed big oil firms for big lie. As he said that the big oil firms, they knew what is the kind of adverse climate impact is going to happen on the overall environment, but they did not agree to that earlier in 1970s. So he slammed them. He drew a parallel with tobacco companies in the US, which were not admitting to the ill effects of tobacco on smokers. And then now all big oil firms, they have come to the center stage now of criticism. In fact, the protests happen every year, and this time they're more focused on big oil firms, including BP, Chevron, and protesters are of the view that they shouldn't be allowed to share their rooms with policymakers where the big oil firms are pushing their agenda.
Right, and Sumit, as you said, we heard some strong words from Guterres slamming those big oil firms, saying that they need to be held accountable. What is the way that they propose to do this?
So, in a way, they should start if the parallel with tobacco firms was drawn. Well, tobacco firms were made to pay billions of dollars when they were convicted of hiding truth, and the science journals earlier now said that the big oil firms are peddling big lie. Now that is also being proven, and they can be taken to courts. ExxonMobil as one company that has already been taken to court in US. Many other companies in other parts of the world can as well. That can be one of the overall remedy we can see coming from the side of protesters. They can take big oil firms to courts. On the other hand, they can courts to pay much more money to other people for the climate change activists as well, activism and the other efforts on which are focused on bringing climate change back on the table. So this can be one of the solutions to the whole problem, but it still depends on where it goes. I would like to point out one thing, since we are in Davos from the last many days. Here, electric cars are in big numbers. So UN chief today said that world should stop its addiction of oil. Well, that's easier said than done, but here in Davos it's happening. I've been coming in from the last many years. I have seen the roads now are being here. They are witnessing the big electric cars in a much big way. So that was only one way to handle that. Only these countries can afford. For developing countries, emerging economies, it's not a solution. It's not a solution in a major way. They have to depend on oil.
Absolutely, Sumit. Thank you very much for being with us and bringing us the latest out of Davos. WION, now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.